Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Let's look at the top headlines today. The Rajya Sabha took up a discussion on the UPSC coaching center deaths in Delhi due to alleged negligence of civic bodies. Slamming the condition of coaching centers, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar compared them with gas chambers. 2 days after the deaths, civic authorities deployed bulldozers to remove encroachments blocking drains, which led to the waterlogging. The Supreme Court on 29th of July dismissed the ED's plea challenging bail to Jharkhand Chief Minister Hemant Soren in a money laundering case. The Supreme Court said that the Jharkhand High Court's order was well reasoned. The CBI has filed a charge sheet against Delhi CM Arvind Kejriwal in an alleged corruption case related to the now scrapped excise policy. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court adjourned Aam Aadmi Party leader Manish Sisodia's bail plea hearing till the 5th of August. The Supreme Court has refused to stay the Patna High Court order which scrapped the 65% quota for backward classes in Bihar. The apex court said that the matter will now be taken up for a detailed hearing in September. In Andhra Pradesh, the State Education Department has renamed 6 welfare schemes for students. The schemes, named after former CM Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy, have been renamed after eminent personalities like Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, APJ Abdul Kalam and Doka Sithamma. The fiber optic networks of several telecom companies were allegedly sabotaged in 6 French regions, excluding Paris. This follows a coordinated series of attacks on France's high-speed train network before the Olympics that disrupted travel for more than 800,000 passengers. An Israeli drone strike killed 2 people and wounded 3 in southern Lebanon on the 29th of July. Lebanon braced for retaliation following a rocket strike in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights that killed 12 teenagers and children on the 27th of July. Meanwhile, Israel's Security Cabinet has authorized the government to decide on the manner and timing of a response. Although Nicolas Maduro has been declared the winner of Venezuela's presidential elections, opposition leaders and key regional neighbors have rejected the results declared on the 28th of July. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is among those who expressed serious concerns over the authenticity of the results. In a message to China, the Quad has reaffirmed its commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific in which each country is free from coercion. Those who attended the meeting included External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Japanese Foreign Minister Yoko Kamikawa, and Australia's Penny Wong. At least 12 children were killed and 30 others wounded in a rocket attack on a football pitch in the town of the Majdal Shams in the Israel-occupied Golan Heights. Israel has accused Hezbollah of carrying out the attack, while the group has denied any involvement. Hezbollah's regional ally Iran has warned Israel against any new adventure concerning Lebanon, using the Majdal Shams incident as an excuse, while Israel has said that Hezbollah has crossed the red line. This showdown has triggered off concern about an all-out regional war. Hezbollah has been exchanging fire with Israeli forces in the areas near the Israel-Lebanon border since the 8th of October, when Israel launched its war on Gaza. The question we are asking today is, will the conflict escalate? To talk about this, I have in the studio with me Arjun Hardas, country representative of the American Jewish Committee, and my colleague Sumit Choudhury, who's just back from a reporting assignment in Lebanon. And joining us from Haifa is Israeli security analyst Itai Melchior. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus Show. Sumit, I want to start by asking you this. Since you were on the ground just a few days ago, what's the situation like in southern Lebanon? Describe to us what you saw there.
Well, Sandeep, the situation is very tense right now, especially from last 24 hours, the situation has drastically changed. But especially when I was there in the South Lebanon, what I've seen, most of the areas became the ghost villages. There is nobody, no person is there. Everybody has been evacuated. Everybody is out from the South Lebanon, especially with the radius of 5 to 7 kilometers. But now, after 24 hours, last 24 hours, what exactly happened between the Israel and Hezbollah? Now the tensions are on the peak, especially because Hezbollah has constructed and diverted and have been sitting in the southern Lebanon area, especially they have made some command and control centers, but right now they also evacuated the South Lebanon, because it is expected that Israel will do something big, Israel will do some bigger airstrikes, and that is the condition right now when you talk about the South Lebanon.
Israel will do something big, Israel will do something spectacular, as they will to prove a point, which they have to because of this unprecedented attack on children. But Itai, tell us how this attack, how this response from the Israeli Defense Forces will look like, given how unprecedented this attack was on the children's playground in the Golan Heights.
Yes, it was indeed a shocking attack. The people who carried out the attack knew what they were doing, so it makes one wonder why. The general understanding on both sides is that no one wants an escalation now. The whole thought was that with Gaza winding down, there will be some agreement for now between Israel and Hezbollah, which will cease the fire and allow Israeli citizens, about 80,000 evacuated citizens, back to their homes in northern Israel. So certainly, even though Israel vows to avenge, and it is not going to do something which is outside the scope of more or less what we've seen now, because Israel does not want escalation, and neither does Hezbollah. So we are in a kind of strange situation where some action has to be carried out, but it has to be under the bar, which will create a whole new war in the north.
Absolutely. No side wants a war, Arjun. I mean, it's very clear that Israel does not want an escalation of the war, but at the same time, it has to do something to retaliate for what happened 2 days ago.
You know, this whole thing about that some excuses, first of all, as you said, the Hezbollah refuses to acknowledge that it was their side, and usual. Consider the rocket that was used. There was a Falak 1 rocket.
Right.
That's an Iranian made Falak 1 rocket, which is supplied to the Hezbollah specifically.
Yes.
And the range is 10 kilometers approximately, 10 to 12
so
kilometers.
Short range rocket.
Short range with a 50 kilogram warhead.
Right.
It was meant for immediate battlefield use.
Yes.
So there's no question that it was flying to Israel or something like that. It was
so there are no excuses that where it's headed.
Secondly, any excuse, so-called excuse that the Hezbollah can say that they were targeting Jews or Israelis and all that. Majdal Shams is a pure Jewish Druze
It's a Druze village.
It's a Druze village. It used to belong to Syria earlier,
until
it was captured as part of the Six-Day War in 1967. So there's no excuse there. So the question is, yes, there will be a retaliation. That's expected. As a matter of fact, just today, as a matter of fact, the Security Council, the War Cabinet, as they call it in Israel, has authorized the Defense Minister and the Prime Minister to carry out a retaliatory action. Now the question is going to be, what is going to be the response from the Hezbollah? Now, the Houthis are sitting on the corner. They have promised a retaliation. They will hit Tel Aviv, they claim. Nobody knows, despite what the damage has been done to Yemen. Then they follow up with this. Iran is sitting pretty on one side, where you have got all its regional actors trying to act in unison. And Israel will obviously not take that. Now, coming back to a small factor which is not to be missed out in this whole thing, is the US elections happening.
Absolutely.
In the next few days, by 18th, will be the UN, the convention for the Democratic Party. Who is going to take where? This is anything that escalates is going to help one side or the other. The White House
US elections.
In the US elections, the White House has already issued a statement that they support Israel.
Yes.
I mean, they frankly cannot support Hezbollah versus Israel. That's pretty obvious. But how is it going to play that out? Again, would there be an action? But of course, and you can see very clearly, is that there are no signboards, no condemnations by the campuses and other people on the roads of the Western countries saying pray for the Majdal Shams, the Druze, because they're not. Now I will before I finish one statement I will make. Don't underestimate the retaliation factor, because the Druze and the Israelis have had a blood bond since 1948. The Druze are the one minority in Israel who are drafted along with the Jews in Israel. They have shed blood for each other. There is a much stronger bond, and the Druze themselves are tough people in that sense. They don't have this forgiveness concept. So the retaliation will be expected, and it will be within expected lines.
Retaliation is expected to be within expected lines, and Israel, of course, will not let this go unchallenged. But Itai, tell us why Israel would not want a war at the moment. As Arjun just mentioned, you have the US elections underway. It's a very critical moment in world geopolitics, where you have an election that looked one-sided a few days ago, and suddenly there's a contest now. It could go either way. Tell us why Israel would not want to risk a full-scale war with Hezbollah at this moment.
Certainly, but if I may, I just want to go back to an important topic, and that is why Hezbollah was denying that they were the ones to fire. You have to remember that the Druze is a very unique people or sect of Islam. They live in southern Lebanon, in northern Israel, and in western Syria. That was all part of the greater Ottoman Empire many years ago. That's where they live. And there's a strong bond also between the Druze people, not only between the Druze, Israeli Jews and Israelis. And therefore, and we've seen in the past that Hezbollah activists have been attacked by Druze of Lebanon. So I think that one of the incentives for Hezbollah to deny this, looking at the consequences, was actually more internal vis-a-vis the Druze population of Lebanon. That is to that point. Now, Israel is not interested in war in general. Israel is still tied up in Gaza. We still have to finish. We are closing soon that at least the high intensity phase of the Gaza war. We have an eye on the Houthis, and we have many defense systems deployed in the south. Again, the Houthis are not such a big danger, as they're very far away. Yes, they did manage to slip a drone into Tel Aviv, but they cannot really create a lot of damage because of the distance. And therefore, everybody knows that Hezbollah has a big arsenal of precise munition that is aimed at Israeli strategic sites and cities. We saw it in the Second Lebanon War. And therefore, this is not the time now for Israel to start this escapade. And you have to remember that when you look at Iranian proxies, Hezbollah is maybe, let's say, the least one to listen to Iranian commands. Nasrallah has his own things that he takes into consideration, internal Lebanese politics, and therefore he's not fast. And had Hezbollah wanted war, they would have started the war when Israel was much busier in Gaza. And today, when Israel is deployed much more in the north after having withdrawn troops from Gaza, this is for sure a lesser good time for them to strike. So they're not interested. And if they're not interested, Israel has no interest in fighting Lebanon. And all Israel actually wants is an amicable solution which will allow its 80,000 people back to the north. A lot of criticism on the government for this not happening sooner. Actually, quite moderate voices are calling for the government, yes, to go and attack and create a zone in southern Lebanon as we had in the previous century. But in the end, the government is not interested.
Sumit, you're the only Indian journalist who's literally been in two sides. You've been in Lebanon, you've been in Gaza, and you've been, of course, in Israel reporting from October last year. Tell us about Hezbollah. You know, it's, as Itai mentioned, that this is a non-state actor with a mind of its own. It's not like the Houthis. It's certainly not like Hamas. It's got some agency of its own. Hassan Nasrallah is a self-styled president of Hezbollah, if you can call him that. What are they thinking right now? From your interactions with all the Hezbollah fighters that you came across in Lebanon, tell us what Hezbollah is up to.
Well, Sandeep, first of all, we need to understand why Hezbollah has started all these attacks, especially in this particular time. Their only demand right now, when I spoke to the commanders, their only demand is to put a ceasefire in the Gaza, which is not possible right now because Israel not going to stop that operation because they wanted to finish or they neutralize everything in the Gaza as far as the Hamas is concerned. And the most important thing, which from last few days when I talked to the commanders, especially in the South Lebanon, they have mentioned this point that we are fighting for the brotherhood, for the Hamas. We are fighting for the Hamas.
There's been an unofficial war that's already on for the last 9 months, and you have vast swaths of both Israel and southern Lebanon that have been depopulated.
Yes, and when you talk about specifically about the base, about their movement, about their strong points as far as Hezbollah is concerned, Hezbollah have changed themselves. When you talk about from after 2011, they have changed their strategies.
Right.
They have modern weapons, they have missiles,
Yes.
they have new techniques, which definitely shared with them from Iran.
Right.
So now their strategies have changed.
Right.
Their fighting pattern, their attacking patterns, and they are more into the modern warfare.
Right.
They
So
are,
you mean they've become like a conventional army?
yes,
now?
they are mini army. You can call
Right.
it a mini army who have a good amount of ammunitions, have a good amount of missiles,
Right.
and they have a good amount of surveillance also,
Right.
networking also. So I think that is why Hezbollah is the major and the biggest players when you talk about all these proxies.
Yeah.
Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah. So they are the strongest as
Yes.
far as the proxies are concerned, and that's why Israel also know this. If they started this second front also,
Right.
the second war front, then obviously they are going to engage for a longer war period.
Right.
They are definitely going for a long period when they have to be in this situation, and that particular time is not suitable for the civilians who have been staying for a very long in the northern part of Israel,
Right.
because they have been evacuated. More than 80,000 people have been evacuated.
Absolutely.
So that is the reason why Israel also want that their retaliation or their action should be that limited, which gives a message that we are going to take a revenge only from the Hezbollah. We are not going to attack the whole Lebanon. We are
Right.
not going to attack. We are not going to take a war with whole Lebanon. We wanted to actions on the Hezbollah only.
Only like a surgical
Yes.
strike targeting
Something like
only Hezbollah and Hezbollah targets.
See, the thing is, he's right. Sumit is right. Is that they've evolved. But if you look at the way they were even in the 2006
Yes.
war, or even before that,
Right.
even during the 90s.
Yes.
For that, there's a story, since you follow the Navy and
Yeah.
military as well. There was an ambush that the Hezbollah did, and they killed 7 Sayarat Hayam, which is
Yes.
special forces of the Navy,
Right.
Israeli Navy,
Right.
ambushed them into a trap and killed them.
Yes.
7, including their commander.
Right.
Which is literally impossible in those days. It used to be thought as so good. In the 2006 war,
Yes.
they have people within their organization who speak fluent Hebrew. They
Right.
could tap into into Israeli radios. On almost the second last day of the war, they trapped 30 soldiers when they had a house fall on their heads.
Right.
They ambushed them into a building.
Right.
Now, the whole thing about the Hezbollah itself, of course, they've evolved from the days like their predecessors, such as the Amal,
Yes.
the Shia militia, etc., who were just a militia per se. What they have done is their main task was demand the expulsion of all Israelis from Lebanon, southern Lebanon, occupied Lebanon.
Right.
That
Which
was done.
Israel did in
Which
2000.
Israel did. But however,
Yeah.
they have stuck on their one little contention.
Yeah.
There's an area called Sheba Farms, which Israel has said that belongs to the Golan,
Right.
to Syria.
Yes.
It does not belong to Lebanon.
Right.
But the Hezbollah has taken that as a condition,
Yes.
and have kept their war, because there's nothing to fight on Israel about after
Right.
everything is gone.
Right.
So this is the kind of thing, and of course with Iran egging them on.
Yes.
And as Sumit rightly said, the thing is with Hamas,
Right.
there is a limitation, north,
Right.
east, west, south. There are limitations of where
Yes.
supplies can come from. Hezbollah does not have that limitation. We've got Syria right next to that,
Right.
where you've got supplies coming in from Iran with no pause on that,
Absolutely.
with no limitations.
It's a direct,
Direct line of supplies.
of supplies from all the way
So the
through
lesson
Syria and
the
Iran.
Israelis would have, I'm sure,
Yes.
of course, that's how it works. A message would have gone through that they can, and the messages also would have gone through
Yes.
to Beirut,
Right.
that we will not attack you directly, although we can, as the phrase goes, turn you back into the Stone Age.
Yes.
They did it in 2006, they can do it again.
Right.
There is no hesitation there. So
Right.
the message has to be sent, like with Iran a couple of months ago, with the
Yes,
retaliation.
absolutely.
That, okay, you've done what you had to do, we will do what we
Right.
have to do, stop it here.
So it'll just be signaling.
Signaling.
It will be signaling, obviously, and of a scale that possibly we haven't
can be
seen.
controlled, yes.
Yeah, but it can be controlled. It's a gradual,
That's right. That's
moving up the
Messaging,
escalation
basically.
ladder and messaging. But Itai, tell us how Israel is viewing the regime change in Iran, which is possibly the most important actor beyond these non-state actors, which is actually controlling all these proxies. How do you see this new regime change, a new moderate head of state, head of government taking over in Iran, in Tehran?
Well, moderate is all relative. I just want to say one thing which was mentioned earlier about a war with Hezbollah or with Lebanon. Israel has no beef with Lebanon. There's no border dispute. There's
Right.
no a war with Lebanon. You have to remember that the Lebanese army itself is supported both by the French and by the US. It's a very weak army, and you have to remember that because of the economic situation in Lebanon, then today a high-ranking officer in the Lebanese army is making less money than a Hezbollah activist, which gets funded by Iran. So it's a big issue on that side. and to make the distinction between Lebanon and Hezbollah is not an easy thing, as they are entwined one with each other, and with the Hezbollah having members in the parliament, etc. Regarding Iran, which is actually the main actor in the region and the one that's stimulating everything that we've been seeing going on, we don't see the change in leadership as so important, because remember that when it comes to external affairs, and when it comes to activating all the actors around the Middle East and beyond, it is actually not the responsibility of the Prime Minister and the leadership, and therefore we haven't seen Iran come out and say we are stopping to develop nuclear weapons, which they say they developed to annihilate Israel. They have not stopped funding any of the terrorist activities around the globe or in the Middle East. So I don't think the change is so much relevant to what's going on in the conflict in the region, but much more of an internal issue in Iran. And again, things in Iran are not that easy. We've seen in the last few years a few attempts of civilians to demonstrate maybe even a small-scale coup, which didn't work. And I think that it's also an attempt of the leadership there to appease the local population and to get more silence on the internal front, so they can concentrate on what's important for them for some reason.
Right, absolutely. And Sumit, this point that Itai mentioned, that the fact it doesn't really matter who comes to power in Iran, because it's their policy on Israel has not changed in decades. Did you get that sense when you were in Lebanon, that the elections in Iran, where you have Masoud Pezeshkian, a new moderate face, that could actually decide the outcome of operations in Lebanon or operations against the Israeli Defense Forces? Was there any such thought in their minds?
Well, Sandeep, nothing will change when you talk about Hezbollah. Their strategies and the support from the Iran will continue to them. And what is more important, their aim is not to give them more weapons. Their aim is to give them more techniques, more modernization, more equipment, so that they can fight
independently.
Independently, yeah. Right. And when you talk about the manpower or the weaponry, I can say you from my experience, they are more stronger as you compare with the Lebanon army. Hezbollah is more stronger than the Lebanese army. They have a good intelligence surveillance systems. When you go around in the South Lebanon, you don't find any CCTV camera, but you find a human intelligence there. People are so connected, so loyal to the Hezbollah. They will share each and every information with them, and they are well connected on phones with the Hezbollah commanders. So this is the surveillance, this is the networking which Hezbollah has done from so many years when you talk about South Lebanon. And South Lebanon is the area where you not only find Hezbollah, but you also find that their mechanism of working, their financial things, their financial power also exist. So Hezbollah has all the support. They have a political support in Lebanon, they have a financial support, they have a weaponry support. So they are more stronger as you talk about when you compare with the Lebanese army and the Lebanese
they're a state within a state with its own military. It's a very unique kind of non-state actor in that sense, Arjun. Nowhere in the world, probably the LTT at its peak.
LTT at its peak, but of course, you see, the point is again to be mentioned is that all this is possible so far, as long as Iran gets away with this. And what you mentioned, the moderate president, just because he's clean shaven and he smiles a little bit, he's not. It doesn't make him a moderate.
It doesn't make him.
You know, he was a member of the IRGC. He's a doctor, fine, but he's a member of the IRGC.
He's a cardiac surgeon.
I think so, if I'm not mistaken. You had the number 2 of the Al Qaeda who was a surgeon. So it's not like just because a doctor, he's a nice guy. And every election,
education never comes in the way of ideology.
And he was not only a member of the IRGC, he fought. He's also this fellow. Coming back, every election, no matter who wins, has to be approved by the Ayatollahs,
Supreme Leader.
By the Supreme Leader. So no Supreme Leader is going to approve somebody who could be a potential threat to the system. As being a moderate, etc. People after the last few, people who think that this fellow, Ahmadinejad, is a moderate. Who's the one who said Israel should be wiped off the map?
So in comparison, he looks like a moderate.
Now he looks like a moderate, so things like that. So this is the way this is no, Iran is getting away with whatever it wants. And it's not helping where the international relations are also the same, where they end up with the regime change, sorry, that's not the word I should use, but a government change happens in the West and money goes to them.
Right. I'm going to ask Itai this question before we close. Itai, do you think, as Arjun says, that Iran is actually getting away with murder? That it is actually the winner in this entire conflict that Israel has been enmeshed in for the last 9 months?
That really depends how you define winner. I cannot see that they have had any achievement besides disturbing the peace, killing Israelis, and then in the end inflicting a lot of suffering on the Gazan civilians and also on the southern Lebanese civilians. Right. So I can't really see a win here for anybody, and therefore getting away with murder, yes, certainly. It's actually quite appalling that the world is allowing a country which is literally saying that it wants to annihilate another member of the UN, that is creating so much havoc. Remember, the whole world trade has been affected by the Houthis, which are an Iranian proxy. It's cost of goods has gone up, cost of shipping has gone up, cost of insurance has gone up, and the world is suffering, and for some reason the world turns a blind eye to this, and so yes, they are getting away with murder. I will give you though one more scoop just to the opening of our conversation, and that is, as was mentioned here, Syria is a serious, let's call it logistic backbone for Hezbollah, and therefore right. I will not be surprised if some of the Israeli attacks, which we will see at a bit higher scale, right. will target assets on Syrian ground. That is something we shouldn't disregard also as part of the bit higher, slightly higher attack against Hezbollah. And then again, hopefully, if we do see within the next few weeks Israel moving into the second phase of the Gaza war, maybe that will be the time also to strike a deal with Hezbollah and get a bit more peace and quiet to the region.
Peace and quiet to the region. Well, that's an interesting set of assertions that Itai just made, that the fact that Syria could be targeted as well.
Yes, it will. And because as I said, quite rightly,
as a logistic hub for Hezbollah.
And this is not new. This has been happening earlier as well in the last 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
That the instability in that country is providing Iran a pathway. The government sitting in Damascus can do nothing.
And certainly Hezbollah, a lot more arms and ammunition.
Straight, without interruption.
And anti-ship missiles is what
with Iran also providing, Syria providing logistical warehouses for Iranian weapons to be stored there.
Right, right. Very interesting times as we've been used to living in the last 9 months. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Itai, Sumit Choudhury, and my friend Arjun Choudhury on this show. For will Israel strike Hezbollah? It's a matter of time. It's not when, it's not if, it's when Israel will strike at Hezbollah. But there's a possibility that Israeli forces could actually strike other countries as well. Syria, as you just heard. Thank you for joining us. Historically, Pakistan has been all too happy to let the country serve as an American outpost. But China's sway in Pakistan has steadily increased over the past decade, and Islamabad has repeatedly dismissed US criticism over the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC, and Pakistan's relations with China. China has also been Pakistan's largest foreign investor for years. Islamabad's tilt towards Beijing has raised concern in Western capitals. Now, after keeping away from Pakistan following the withdrawal of Western forces from Afghanistan, the US seems to be coming back to Pakistan. It's just approved a $100 million push to keep China out of Pakistan's backyard. And the US Assistant Secretary of State, Donald Lu, recently told a congressional panel that the US wants to prevent Islamabad's further over-reliance on Beijing. And hear this, China is the past in terms of investment. We are the future. So is Pakistan now the frontline state in the China-US contest for influence in Asia? How will this state of affairs impact the China-Pakistan economic corridor? And is India once again seeing a fallout of this with the increase in terror attacks in Jammu? Joining me to discuss this are senior journalist Amit Barua, Ambassador Yogesh Gupta, and in the studio is my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus Show. Ambassador Gupta, I want to start by asking you this. What do you make of Ambassador what do you make of Donald Lu's statement recently where he said that China is the past, the US is the future? Is the United States once again coming back into Pakistan after withdrawing in 2021 from Afghanistan? Is Pakistan back on the radar in Washington?
Well, I think, the Americans have started getting some sort of a self-exaggerated sense of their relevance or importance in the emerging political scenario in our region. Now, they seem to feel that because there has been a certain amount of bad blood between China and Pakistan due to China's refusal to sort of roll over certain loans relating to the power sector,
Right.
that they have an opportunity here to meddle and to sort of improve their relations with Pakistan at the expense of China. But Pakistan itself has made it clear, a spokesman of the Pakistan Foreign Ministry has made it clear that as far as they are concerned, for them, their relationship with China receives a much higher priority
Right.
than their relationship with the United States. While they are interested to have strengthened relations with both China as well as the United States, they will not let the relationship with the United States grow at the expense of their relationship with China. So that part, the Pakistan itself has made it clear. Now, what is it that the Americans are looking for? Americans are thinking that Pakistan is now in a vulnerable situation.
Right.
They think that financially, Pakistan is in poor state. Pakistan's finances are dependent on fresh loans from the IMF and so on. And they think that they have this opportunity to get some sort of a basic facility in Pakistan. They have the opportunity to strengthen their presence in Pakistan, which they can use possibly against Iran or in their balance of power situation or scenario against India. So, they have all these kinds of, they are working on all these kinds of possibilities. They could use Pakistan against China maybe. They could use Pakistan in the Indian Ocean, all kinds of calculations in the Gulf and so on. But I think these are all highly exaggerated.
Right.
Nothing of this kind is going to happen. Pakistan is going to give a much higher priority to their relations to China than the United States. Of course, $100 million is hardly any worthwhile amount. I don't think Pakistan is going to be terribly excited about this $100 million. And so I think there is too much of life being made of a very, very small sum of money. And I think the Americans are just overplaying.
The Americans are just overplaying their hand. Aditya, do you see any connection between what's going on right now in the way the Pakistanis are playing both the Chinese and the United States to achieve its objectives in Jammu and Kashmir? The violence in Jammu, do you see that as connected with what's going on with the kind of great game that they are playing? The Pakistan army is playing with both China and the United States.
Firstly, I think it's pretty much clear that US has done this before and could do it again.
Right.
The rebalancing between India and Pakistan.
Yes.
The kind of policy that Obama had.
Right.
We had the same policy to an extent in the past as well. Donald Trump, initial phase, it was different. There were strict warnings that went on. But then by the end of it, it was again a rebalancing. US still has not been able to digest or understand at a full scale the kind of betrayal that it went through when Afghanistan was taken over by the Taliban.
Exactly 3 years ago.
3 years ago. Yeah. And I think they still have to understand what the consequences really were and how they were backstabbed. At the same time, I agree with Ambassador Gupta when he says that Pakistan's priority has been and will remain China.
Right.
They call China their iron brother.
Yes.
And that is what is visible down on ground as well. Yes, there have been some, rough patches in the relationship with the TTP attacks against the Chinese.
Right.
We've seen how the Chinese engineers have been killed, attacks on infrastructure as well. And China's stern warning has been there to the deep state as well to provide security.
Right.
At the same time, I think India would only raise a concern if US's defense ties with Pakistan are to be strengthened yet again, if fighter jets, ammunition, all kinds of those articles are yet again given to Pakistan as a so-called ally in the region, I don't think that is certainly going to happen in near future. Also because this is an election year. We'll have to wait and watch at least next 10 months on what the new government's policy, new US administration's policy towards Pakistan will be. I think a lot is being said, blown out of proportion on US's stand on Pakistan. A lot is also election sloganeering. A lot is also messaging in the election year. So as of now, I think for Pakistan, China is much more important. But yes, I agree with you, Sandeep, my last point, that yes, we have seen in the past, the Sharifs have had a good business relation with the US, and they would want for a better economy in Pakistan to have a good ties with Washington DC. But at the same time, I don't think, as of now, it does seem so that the Pakistan army and the Sharifs are on the same page. Will they remain so? How will the dynamics play out vis-a-vis Taliban is something we'll have to wait and watch.
Absolutely. Let's ask Amit Barua this. Amit, you've spent time in Pakistan. You've reported from Islamabad. Tell us how the Pakistan military is seeing things right now with, these, say, half-hearted attempts made by the United States to woo them with $100 million, not a lot of money. And you have China, on the other hand, with a full-fledged CPAC, a large number of projects, infrastructure investments, all of that. What is it that could actually sweeten the deal between the United States and Pakistan? Would it be, as Aditya was suggesting, that a reopening of the arms pipeline? Because nothing gets the Pakistan military going like F-16 jets, for instance.
Sandeep, thank you for your question. I think that, I was looking at what Donald Lu said. It seemed that it was more a television bite than serious strategic analysis. Because anybody who sees the history of Pakistan-US relations in the last 30 years would know that the Americans have not made any significant investment in Pakistan for many years. Their relationship with Pakistan has been very transactional. We saw it, after 9/11, and that transactional nature continues. And of course, we do have a new army chief in Pakistan. So obviously, the Americans, traditionally they've had very good relations, army to army or military to military relations. But I don't see any, dislodging of China happening. So Donald Lu's comments, perhaps, slightly over the top. And I'm not so sure whether it was meant, for a domestic audience in the United States. But overall, it appears to me that, the relationship between China and Pakistan is not just, as you know, an economic relationship. There are solid defense, needs and requirements which are built into it, which is why the Pakistanis lay so much store by that relationship. But overall, I think that the Americans having to say this publicly also shows that, their own credibility in the region, their hasty departure from Afghanistan, their inability to play a larger role in South Asia, I think that is something which should concern them. Plus, I think the government of India, has had traditionally very good relations with the United States over a number of years and a number of governments. But I think that, as far as security is concerned, we faced the brunt of, how should I put it, American favoritism, or whatever you call it, Tarapur, to my mind, being the best example, the nuclear fuel that was withheld by the Americans. So I think all these things are I'm sure, in the mind of the Indian government. But as far as the Pakistanis are concerned, they also know the Americans very well. They have dealt with them for a number of years. They, as I was saying, Sandeep, to you, is that this transactional nature of the relationship is very evident. However, the situation in Afghanistan, from the reports that I see, we see a buildup of Al-Qaeda camps in Afghanistan. This is something which should concern the Americans, because if you remember, the first time the Taliban took power in 1997, the Americans had virtually abandoned the region. and this gave free rein to all
Yes.
kinds of terrorist groups to, set up camp, regroup, and then launch attacks globally. So my own sense is the Americans should definitely be engaging the Pakistanis, but whether they are going to replace China, I
Right.
think, to my mind, it's a slightly, right now, slightly laughable proposition.
Laughable proposition at the moment, given the kind of investments that the Chinese have made in Pakistan, both in the military and in the civil side with the China-Pakistan economic corridor. But Ambassador Gupta, this point about the US-Pakistan relationship being purely transactional and the one between China and Pakistan being more for the long term, you have hard projects on the ground, you have infrastructure being created. Does that weigh on the minds of the generals in GHQ Rawalpindi when they make their next moves? Given the fact that there's not going to be any significant outreaches from the United States, as Aditya was mentioning, the US is in full-scale election mode, nothing to expect out of Washington, D.C. for the next 6 to 8 months. What's your sense of this?
First of all, as far as the transactional relationship with the US is concerned, that is something, US has transactional relationship with most countries, not only Pakistan. I think also with India, also with other countries. That is their nature. That is their temperament. That is how they look at it. That is one thing. Number two, as far as the Pakistani generals are concerned, as far as Pakistani army is concerned, I think they are certainly absolutely delighted. They are certainly keen to have good relations with the United States, because they like to visit the United States more. They would like to have more courses done in the US military institutions. Right. They would like to have more US arms. They would like to know more about the US strategies, about the US war planning exercises, and so on. So while they have good relations with China, but they are more enthused about the relationship with the United States because the way things are. But as far as the political leadership is concerned, as far as the Pakistani Foreign Office or the bureaucracy is concerned, they certainly look upon China as a much more dependable, much more stronger, much more reliable, all-weather ally, and that relationship has far more substance than their relationship with the United States.
Ambassador Gupta, I'm afraid we're completely out of time there, but thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on this installment of the News9 Plus show. US-Pak bonding, should India worry? Well, clearly, as our experts have told us, not at the very moment, because given the way things are in the United States with the elections, it doesn't look like there's anything much happening there for the next 6 or 8 months. But in the long term, it is going to be China that is the permanent player in Pakistan.